Good day, everyone. This is Brian Beck and Andy Moore with Master B2B for our weekly Friday 15. Welcome, everyone, to our weekly event here where we talk about a pressing topic in B2B e-commerce. Excited to be here, Andy, for another episode of Friday 15. Welcome.
Yeah, I think it's hotter in Chicago than it is in LA right now.
Probably. It's about 60 degrees and overcast. So, yeah, probably.
Is it really? Well, it's like in the mid 80s here today. So,
wow.
Take that. And we got water here too. So,
yeah.
Evanston's the beach town right now.
Yeah, okay. All right. I was just at the beach. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But welcome, everyone, to Friday 15. We got an exciting and fun report from the field this week. But before we get into that, let's talk about our breaking news. I'm gonna copyright that or trademark that, Andy. So
same breaking news. I think that's already been taken.
Probably. All right. So did you see this? This is fascinating, and let's talk about this for a minute. AI's threat to Google just got real. This was a report. I think it was this week, right? Last week in the Wall Street Journal, and senior Apple executives said Wednesday that Google searches over the Safari web browser fell over the last 2 months. That has not happened in 20 years, Eddie Q, Apple's senior vice president of services, said on the witness stand. Of course, that's a whole other thing we're going to talk about in a second. But Q attributed the drop to a growing number of people using generative AI services such as ChatGPT and Perplexity. Wow. Is this the death knell for Google? What happened, Andy? Look at that stock price. Those of you who can see this, Amazon stock, or sorry, not Amazon, Google stock took Alphabet. I can't get my names right today. Took a huge hit. What happened? Tell us more.
Yeah, well, it went down like 7-8% in one day and has since recovered. But the reality is this is not good news for Google. We've been talking about this for a little while. And, Google has the innovator's dilemma now, right? They actually were the first ones to develop a lot of these Gen AI tools because they had the biggest data set from which to work.
Right.
Problem is, they thought it was going to cannibalize their business. It probably will. As a result, they sat on it. Because you know how we know this? Because when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, Google's competing service came out in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that's amazing development time that you can do this so quickly. Well, it's because they had it. Yeah. And now they have a problem, which is if you go do a Google search, it gives you a bunch of options that they monetize. If you do a Gemini search, it just gives you the answer. So there's nothing really to monetize there. So they're going to have to wholesale shift their model. And I honestly don't know how they're going to do it. They'll find a way, but this is a Netflix moving from CDs in the mail to digital kind of shift. Right. And it's pretty dramatic.
It's fascinating. It has huge implications, Andy, for even how people market. We talked about this. We'll get to our roundtables in just a few minutes here, but we talked about it this week in our roundtables around the country. This particular issue, it's changing the game for marketers also. Think about it for a moment. Okay, so I read a story this morning, Andy, and I want to ask you a question. What do you think the number one place that people went to after searching on ChatGPT? What was the number one domain from last year into early this year? I just read a report on this. What was the number one domain that people went to? What do you think?
Well, I think it might be another Gen AI service, just like the number one search on Yahoo is Google and has been for years. But I don't know.
You don't know, right? So let me read it to you. So this is out of Fortune this morning. Between late October and mid-January, Amazon.com was the most frequently visited domain referred from ChatGPT's search function, accounting for 9.13% of all traffic. Amazon. What does that mean? ChatGPT is being used for search and shopping. This is commerce, folks. This is commerce. Think about that. How do you market in an LLM like this?
Well, there's more evidence. Yeah, there's more evidence that because Shopify recently secretly cut a deal with OpenAI, and nobody's talking about it, but everybody knows what it is. It's going to be a shopping cart built right in. Yep. So that might change for Amazon, but yeah, they've gotten the memo that there's a lot of commerce potential here with these LLMs.
So if I'm a marketer, right, you think for years, and I did this for years myself, SEO, search engine optimization. And we're going to talk about it a little more later, get some feedback from the field. But if you're a marketer and you're SEO trying to optimize in search engines for your position in search engines, well, there's all kinds of best practices, backlinks and content and site structure and mobile speed and, all these site speed, all these things that you would do as an SEO marketer for Google and other search engines. What the heck? This is a complete game changer. How the heck do I market? What do I do? Right. So this is a whole new realm. And there's actually this article I was reading talked about agencies that are now coming out that will help companies to optimize in LLMs. So and if you're Amazon, how do you optimize here? And this is a different type of searching too, and a different type. This is a language model. So people are asking questions.
Yeah, but there's just one problem with it. We talked about this in New York, actually, and somebody there brought this up. I'm getting pitched by agencies left and right about being able to do GEO, or generative engine optimization. And when they ask a simple question like, how does it work? Nobody's got an answer for it. If you want to get my business, I understand you're going to operationalize it, but you have to tell me how it's going to work. And they can't really say, or they obfuscate by saying it's an ancient Chinese secret, or whatever it is. But nobody really knows. In fact, when we talked about it, we kind of came to the conclusion that it's probably going to look a lot like, in the end, SEO.
Yeah.
Funny and ironically enough, but even that's an open question.
It is. And what cracks me up about this too, Andy, is the government is filing a suit to try to break up this whole trial. I mean, this all came out in this. The Apple stuff. The government is so far behind. What the times. I'm sorry, government, but look, you're trying to break this. This market is changing out from under Google. I mean, it's the market is what's gonna impact Google's business. If not,
remember when they decoupled Internet Explorer with the Windows platform?
Right.
Anybody use Internet Explorer's browser anymore?
Right.
I mean,
it's like, come on, guys.
I haven't used that in 15 years.
It's crazy.
The same thing is going to happen to Chrome. They're talking about removing Chrome from Google's platform. And ironically, of all things, one of the companies that's reputed to be on the short list to buy Chrome if they have to spin it off as a part of some government relief is Yahoo.
No
which was
way.
the company that Google upended when they were the search engine for Yahoo. So I guess turnabout is fair play here.
Man, that is crazy. Wow. The market moves at the speed of the market. Innovation, and that's again, I'm a capitalist, man. Let that drive. Whatever.
Well, it wins in the end anyway, doesn't it? I mean, you can. Antitrust serves a purpose, and it's supposed to be to make things more efficient, and it can. When you broke up Standard Oil, it made markets more efficient, but it can be taken too far. But I think the biggest problem is, to your point, there's a lot of guys in Congress don't understand how this works. I mean, it's 80-plus-year-old senators who don't even have cell phones are going to tell us the difference between ChatGPT and Google. I mean, come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can do a whole episode just on that. This is a fascinating topic. Well, let's talk about our report from the field for a few minutes here, Andy. We've been all over the dang country this spring, and just over the last 2 weeks, we've been in several markets for our regional roundtables. That last week and this week, you were in New York City last week, and then we were in Minneapolis and Los Angeles this week for our roundtable locations. New York looks like an absolutely fantastic and beautiful location and event. Andy, tell us about that. You ran that one.
Yeah, 3 West Club, downtown Manhattan, overlooking St. Patrick's Cathedral, which was, by the way, one day before they announced the Pope.
Oh, wow.
And the next day, that whole place was flooded with people. But there's Jared in the front. He finally got on camera. There's supposed to be behind the scenes here, producer. But, we had some great companies there. Bosch & Lomb was there. MS Supply was there. CDE Fasteners was there. Crystalrama, a dental supplier. I mean, there's a lot of really good people. And John Green from Optimizely swung by to join us. But great conversation. A lot of, I called it behind the curtain talk about how people select vendors and partners. Fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's neat. And then you were in Minneapolis this week. Tell us about that. That was another beautiful location and an amazing group, right?
Yeah, no, Minneapolis always turns out. It's like Chicago. I mean, high quality B2B companies. Solventum was there. Great Northern Equipment was there.
Hmm.
Ergodyne, Ecolab, Boston Scientific, General Mills. I mean, Pentair. You
Yeah,
just name it. The companies that you expect from Minneapolis. And by the way, a lot of these folks don't travel to other events. And so
right.
when we go to Minneapolis, this is really the event they go to. It's a local networking event, but you always get a couple of people who we just don't see at other places. And so
Yeah.
fantastic discussion. And we had Danny Java and Rob LaRue from Vtex who joined and
Oh
shared
yeah.
some insights. So
Fantastic.
that was great. And we'll be back to Minneapolis again in the fall.
That's right. We're going in the fall, and I was in Los Angeles this week. Of course, Andy, you're in these, in the Midwest. I go to the beach, man. That's what we do in SoCal here, dude. So we were down in Seal Beach at this absolutely gorgeous country club, and Old Ranch Country Club, and it was, we're near the beach. We're right on the golf course. We had dinner outside. It was lovely. Had some great folks at our event too. Eric Chen from Kingston Brass. You see him there in the picture. We had Mattel there, Fossil Hussein and Ricardo Caruso, two of our Nexus expert advisors were in attendance. So what a great group, great conversation, great group, and an absolutely lovely setting. And we talked about a lot of different things, Andy, at these, and thought we'd just pull out a couple key themes here that came out of these round tables. You had a lot of talk about, guess what, tariffs, right? What was the theme there?
Well, this has been fun to track because we've been doing these every couple of weeks, and every couple of weeks it changes because the tariffs change.
That's right.
So I think people are getting a little more, things are starting to stabilize a little bit more. People are getting a little more confident in their positions. I think it's mostly a temporary situation, but the thing that's not temporary is this disruption that it's causing.
Sure.
Everybody was telling me, at these events, same thing, which is, red, yellow, green, meaning red, full stop, green, full go. It's trending more to the yellow, green end of things, but they say things like, but we don't know what we're going to do about this. People are not even quoting prices now. They learned the lesson. They're just like, yeah, you give us an order and in a week we'll give you the price when we know more about what the tariffs are. There's also kind of an interesting phenomenon going on here around tariff engineering. This has come up a bit, that companies are getting around this by changing the name of the products. So shoes get tariffed one way, but slippers do not. And so if you add like one thing into the sole, you can recharacterize a shoe as a house slipper, and then it's exempt from this. There are also people who are putting a lot of the stuff they ship from China into warehouses, like called bonded warehouses, where you can't touch it for 5 years or 3 years or whatever, but then you put it in the warehouse, there's no tariff applied to it. And then when the tariff situation finalizes, you take it out of the warehouse. And so basically you're just holding it in cold storage for a couple of years.
That's great. It all sounds a little sketch to me, Andy. I don't know. Well, yeah, tariffs, it's interesting because, in my Amazon world, we're seeing this as an opportunity for US branded manufacturers to take share back from some of the Chinese brands. If you look at the count of Chinese brands and sellers on Amazon, it's almost 50% of the top sellers on Amazon are out of China. And so, and there's I think there's a lot of confusion in that community. What the heck to do? Do I back out of Amazon? Do I raise prices? Do I look at other countries? What the heck do I do? And it says on and again, off again. To us, it presents an opportunity, I think, to U.S. manufacturers to really capitalize and take some of that share back. They have lost so much share and they don't even know it. It's incredible to these Chinese companies. But anyway, so we see it as an opportunity, a window of opportunity in some ways. What about this next dollar check-in? You asked people a lot about, hey, where's the next dollar going? What did you hear?
Yeah, really two things. One is personalization.
Yeah.
Is more chatbots, more AI, better search capabilities so they can target audiences more specifically. And really the other hot thing is anything about efficiencies in the buying process, converting email orders into digital orders, for example, enhancing e-commerce tools to deliver more, frictionless situations. So that's pretty consistent that we kept hearing the same thing over and over again, because even in, some companies are not making big purchases right now. Things are on hold because of the tariff trauma.
Right.
But they're still buying these technologies. They're still focused in investing in these areas for sure.
I hear I heard an interesting thing in LA. I heard hiring, and specifically hiring for analytics and data analytics. And we've heard this before. We've heard it at our summit. I think the one last year, we heard that loud and clear. And I know we can, next dollar, who's your next hire? We ask those questions regularly. And analytics, data scientists, even at the even at smaller companies, data scientists, because again, we're talking about the sort of this data problem and normalization. And the point in LA, we talked a lot about, we had a whole debate going between Fossil and the senior guy from Mattel around, what can the data problem be solved, and what kind of analytics, what's needed underneath that. And the Mattel fellow was saying, hey, it's really hard. You can't, this normalization is hard. And Fossil said, no, it's not that hard if you have the right people. So we got this whole debate about, who are the right people. And so it was fascinating. What about this best of breed versus best of suite? You guys talked about that in Minneapolis a lot, I think, right?
Yeah, there's a religious war that's been going on for ages about, hey, do you buy the whole thing, or do you buy it in pieces?
Right.
Do you buy it pre-integrated? Do you buy it with components, and so on and so forth? And where we sort of net it out is it kind of depends on where you want to start.
Yeah.
If you want to start with some pre-integrations, then a best of suite approach is really superior. And now you can compose other parts of that. Yep. On the other hand, if you want more flexibility, you need to tailor it to an experience. Or what one person pointed out is that they don't want to lag on the technology front. If they want the best of the best, then you got to start with the best of breed example. So it really depends on your circumstances, but everybody's kind of merging in the middle anyway.
Yeah.
There aren't just pure whole monoliths anymore and pure whole, composable solutions where it's just, hey, here are all the pieces, go assemble yourself, all assembly required. Those don't exist anymore because those guys have been asked to pre-integrate some of those things. Right. And the best of suite people have been asked for more flexibility. So they're kind of meeting somewhere in the middle, but where you start depends on what you need to begin with. So there's that. I think on this partner versus platform thing, we should just tease. I think this is going to be another Friday.
We should do it. Yeah. So the question there is, who do you pick first? The platform, like an e-com platform, or the partner to implement and help you select the platform up front? And maybe we'll do a whole Friday 15 just about that, because
there's been a surprise movement on this one, which I think warrants its own Friday 15. So stay tuned on that one.
All right, we'll hold on that one. So we talked about this AI, practical AI, and GEO, generative engine optimization, and we talked about it at all of the roundtables. And the takeaway from my roundtable, Andy, in LA, was that number one, people weren't really sure how to do it. But one of the suggestions, and some of the companies are testing, feeding a lot of information into the LLMs so that, thought leadership, the consensus, if you can call it a consensus, was that, it's really about thought leadership, and it's putting another level of importance on thought leadership, written, video, case studies, white papers in your industry, right? And thought leadership and influencers. And so it's less about, at least the consensus was maybe less about sort of keyword optimization, older optimization techniques, and now more about actually producing valuable, thought leadership, and then letting the engines know about it. So what did you hear around this topic?
Yeah, same thing actually. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on, as you were talking, I was thinking, I'm like, I think this is now not about search engine. It's more about content optimization.
Yeah, right.
What's the right content? And it's not just anything, and it's not just quantity, and it's not just quality. I think it's a combination of the two, but it does feel like these LLMs are more attracted to content that is more, like you said, thought leadership like, as opposed to, just repeat the word 8,000 times on the page so it gets picked up as a keyword. Right. I agree. It's almost like search. In the evolution we see in search, where keyword search is kind of dead, and now contextual search is really in. I think the same thing is happening with LLMs. Keywords to attract an LLM are kind of dead, It feels like content, contextual content, thought leadership material is probably the new thing for
Well, they're
GEO.
just freaking smarter, right? I mean, they learn. Their LLMs are
Yeah.
learning models. I think what we should probably do a Friday 15 on this one too. Is GEO the new SEO, or is
Yeah.
SEO dead, replaced by GEO? And then our last topic we talked a lot about was ROI and KPIs, and Ricardo Caruso, who's one of our one of our experts at Nexus, he talked a lot about how he did this at Cepheid and at Illumina. He presented a case study at the beginning of our roundtable about gaining alignment, getting people past just sort of thinking about incremental revenue at the senior level. It's much more than that, and the influence it has. I shared an image of an iceberg, which is my favorite way to describe the fact that if you're only looking at the tip of the iceberg, if you're only looking at e-commerce sales, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Any key learnings there you took away?
Yeah, just one or two, I should say, two that come out. It should be customer satisfaction is really the key metric in the end. That's the softest one, and therefore in B2B, the one that's hardest to prove, and then thus the one that people deprioritize. They all talk about what it means, but nobody uses that in the boardroom. Revenue is always a winner, incremental revenue in particular. But the thing that surprised me is how much people are talking about the efficiencies that digital brings.
Right.
Translation, cost savings, or enabling salespeople to be more productive. That's now gaining some resonance.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We talked about like using AI for language translation for websites all over the world was one example that was cited by Mattel. All right, we're past our Friday 20 here as usual, Andy. So let's do a couple quick announcements. First, I want to make folks aware of our Nexus program, which is your personal digital lifeline. This is like almost like one of the research subscriptions you might subscribe to, but it's much more focused on B2B e-commerce, and it's delivered. The advice is delivered by peers and expert advisors. We're doing custom research, custom events, etc. for this service. It is a paid subscription. If you're interested in learning more about it, it's only for practitioners. Give us a shout out through our website. You can go to our website, masterb2b.com, and find out more information. Also, our forum is there and available, and there's stuff happening all the time, every day on our forum. Go to Master B2B, look at forum, and you can join at no cost. It is practitioners only. We don't have any vendors or solution providers in there. And we've got, there's so many people in there. There's conversations every day. It's great. So encourage you to join if you're not already a member. And finally, don't forget that our Friday 15 is available by podcast form in your favorite podcast service, as well as on our website. And please rate us. And that really helps, of course, only if it's positive. Yeah. All right. Anyway, Andy, any final words? No, but go ahead.
No.
What? Okay. Wow. This is shocking. All right, folks, we will see you next week on our next Friday 15. Thanks for joining. We'll do another fun topic then. We'll see you soon.